guys, I have got 7 hard rock and heavy metal lead guitar techniques that I want to share with you in this video. This is going to be a lot of fun. Now real quick, these are going to be really just concepts. I will show you how to play some of the licks that I'm playing throughout this video here, but I'm not offering tabs or anything like that because I want you to grasp the concept and I want you to be able to just kind of take it and run with it. I'm going to show you how to do that throughout this lesson. Now hang around till the end of the video because we're kind of covering rock and metal in this video here, and I'll explain why I'm doing both and not one or the other. That's going to be a really interesting chat, and of course I always love to hear your feedback when we have these little chats like this. Now before we get started, if you do not have my Metal Riffs and Licks practice guide, make sure you grab a copy of that. There's a link in the description of this video. If you already have that and you don't have one of my guitar courses, well, those links are in the description as well. This first technique might be the coolest technique because, well, it just sounds cool. And actually a lot of you have asked me about this, like, Jason, what are you doing when you do that slide thing? I want to know exactly what you're doing. Here's the cool thing about this technique, well, other than the fact that it sounds really cool, is I'm not really doing a whole lot. I am just doing something like this. I'm not really pinpointing any particular fret or frets. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of holding the strings here. I've got my hands hovered over the strings, not even really fretting anything, okay? I wait until I pick with my right hand and I'll just, pluck a few strings there. Again, there's not really a lot of thought put into this. At that time, I'm hitting those strings or plucking those strings. I'll then bar down on those frets, on the series of frets, whatever frets I happen to be on. Could be here, could be here. And I'll usually use my middle finger and or my third finger, just depends on, I guess, what mood I'm in. So it's really simple, guys. Now, one thing you have to kind of be careful is that you land on the appropriate note that you're going for. So this is not only used in leads, it's also used a lot in rhythms. For example, of course, I overdid it just to demonstrate, but again, I'm just hovering my finger, usually my middle finger there, over the fretboard, and as soon as I pick, then I'll just kind of clamp down and slide, and that's it. Now, in this particular case, a little bit more difficult because we're not going to a power chord. You've got a little bit more leeway when you're going to like a power chord or something like that, or doing that slide in between, parts of a song, like from verse to chorus with the rhythms. When you're going to a lead note, got to be a little bit careful, okay, a little bit more careful, but it can be done, just practice. And then that brings us to the next little technique, which is actually a lick. So again, that's not really a technique per se. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's really just a lick that you'll hear in a lot of 80s metal guitar solos or 80s rock guitar solos. I've got 3 songs I'm thinking of, and neither of them are actually metal. They're more rock solos, but let's see, 7 Wonders by Fleetwood Mac. They've got that little lick in there. Okay, you got that in 7 Wonders, which is a really cool song. You've also got the Cutting Crew's I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. Another song real quick that comes to mind is the really killer song in Rocky IV. And actually, this is not an 80s song. I think it was 1978 by Robert Tepper, No Easy Way Out. Remember that song when Rocky and Adrian are kind of fighting? So he gets in his, I think it's a black Lamborghini, he drives off. Well, that song starts playing then. But yeah, that lick is in that song as well. And there are countless other 80s songs, and probably some 70s too, that have that little lick, or at least that style, that lick with a little bit more added flavor to it. And real quick, all I'm doing here, we're on the B and E string. So on the B string, we're on fret 7 going to 8, then we go to the E string on the 10th fret. And of course, all those songs I just mentioned, they're probably all in different keys, but I'm just giving you the concept of a type of lick that you'll find in a lot of 80s music. Speaking of those three particular songs, I actually do an acoustic version of all three of those songs at my live solo gigs. Now, right after we pull off that little 80s lick that we just went over, which is a really cool lick, by the way, there's a very subtle whammy bar movement that I'm doing here, and this can be heard in a lot of different 80s guitar solos as well. Real simple, very subtle, nothing crazy. We're not doing any like dive bombs or anything like that, just a subtle movement. What I'm doing here is when I hit that note, and it can be any note, doesn't have to be that particular note. I'll give you a few tips here though on how to make this sound smooth. One, with the whammy bar, I'm just going down just a little, then I'm coming right back up and just letting it, you know, kind of have that vibrato there. Just a subtle movement. Again, nothing crazy. Things like that add so much to your guitar solos. It's just like, wow, it's just really cool. And it's nothing super crazy. Now, one thing I will tell you when you're doing that or really doing anything with your whammy bar and a single note, what I like to do is I like to mute the surrounding strings that I'm not playing with my fretboard hand. So if you notice, I'm not getting any string noise from the other strings when I do that. Now you'll see the position of my hand here. I'm just trying to keep it there. So my pinky's on that note there, right? That E string 10th fret, but I've got my fingers hovered over the other strings so I don't get any string noise. If you don't do that, you kind of run the risk of it sounding kind of like this. No, we don't want that. So I always kind of hover my hands, or my fingers rather, over those other strings. And then you'll see I come right back down with my palm to mute those strings again as I get ready to shift my fretboard hand to whatever else I'm going to play next, which I can't remember what that was, but that's coming up now. Now we've got some classic Eddie Van Halen style finger tapping, and finger tapping, well, first of all, it's just cool, right? But this is a technique that was just really prominent throughout the 80s in rock and metal and heavy metal, and especially in hair bands. Man, with the hair bands, we just had some phenomenal guitarists back in the day. I instantly think of guitarists like Red Beach, you know, with Winger. He just comes to mind because he did some really cool tapping stuff as well. But countless guitar players just integrated the tapping into their guitar solos, and it just sounded really cool. So again, this isn't really a lesson on how to play the solo that I just made up for this video here. Actually, I'd made this up for social media. I just wanted to post something. I'm like, you know, let me turn this into a lesson because there's all these cool little techniques I can share with you guys. But I will show you that first part here. Now, I like to keep things simple when I'm writing guitar solos. So I'm already in this particular area of the fretboard. So I just decided to hang around in that same area. We're on the E string. This first part of the tapping is all on the E string. The notes that I'm going to be playing with my fretboard hand are that 10th fret of the E string, which we ended on after that cool little lick with a little subtle whammy there. And I'm also going to be playing the 7th fret. So these two notes right here. Now I've got three notes that I'm going to be tapping on, and that's going to be, again, the E string, going to be the 15th, 14th, and 12th fret. And I've just got this cool, simple melodic pattern going. And I think I went over across the other two strings there, kind of like this. I hit a wrong note. Let's see if I can do that again. something like that. I kind of went through that fast because I'd have to go back and watch the video to remember exactly what I did and kind of like think it out. But anyway, I wanted to share just that one little piece with you real quick, because you can take the concept, and that's what this video is all about. Take the concept that I'm showing you here and just, hey, run with it, you know, do your thing with it. This is what I really want for you guys when you watch my videos. You know, even if I'm teaching you one of my own songs, I don't care that you play the song to the T. It doesn't matter. I want you to take something that I share with you and make it your own, you know, just run with it and see what comes out, because that's what being a guitar player and musician is really all about. Now, this technique is very rhythmic and also kind of flows into the rhythm section of the guitars, but it is still, or it can be part of the guitar solo as well. But it's kind of like where rhythm meets lead guitar. It's very melodic in nature most of the time. And what we're doing is just palm muting those single notes. That's all we're doing. So I did something like this here. Something like that. What I would want you to practice though, and again, this is just palm muting the single notes. We're on the D and the G string, so I'm on the G string starting out here between the 4th and 5th frets, and then I'm going to go over to the D string 5th fret. So just practice something like that, and then I want you to expand on it naturally, right? I want you to start adding your own notes. Just where those hands want to go, just let them be free, let them roam the fretboard. You know, if you play something that doesn't sound right, well, okay, well, don't play that again, play something else. Keep pushing yourself and trying until it sounds cool to you. But just kind of start with that though. You know, 5 to 4, then to 5 on that next string over. And I'm just palm muting those notes, so it's kind of like a rhythm meets lead again. Now I think of a lot of songs by Def Leppard. They tend to throw that sort of thing in their music a lot. And there's a particular song by Tesla that uses that little pattern or something similar with that palm muted technique there. The song is called Song and Emotion, which is a killer song by Tesla. I do love some Tesla, by the way. They do that. I'm trying to think of where in the song. I think it's right before the chorus, right before the song really starts to kick in. Really, really cool part of the song. So if you haven't heard that, definitely go check that out. Now this is a classic technique, and it's kind of like 2 in 1 here. You've got that really high bend there, followed by a little alternate picking shred. And I'm not doing anything like over the top here or anything, but one of the solos that comes to mind, and of course this solo is much smoother than the one I just played, and I'll show you what I did here, but John Norum's solo, you know, John Norum from Europe, his solo on Superstitious. That solo is just amazing. I need to sit down and learn that one day, but that's just a really killer solo. But he's got these high notes followed by some of that alternate picking shred there, and it just sounds very fluid and just very clean. He was such a clean guitar player. But that technique is very prominent as well throughout 80s metal, hard rock, and even some of the rock stuff, right? So again, it's just a high note. I'm on the E string 17th fret, and I'm just bending it for starters. That's my high bend. Now, you might hear a little rake before I went to that, okay? And I didn't really mean to put that in. It was like, okay, it just kind of happened as I was playing. I'm not really playing any particular frets there. I've got my strings palm muted here, right? Before I play that high note. I've got my palm over here, and I'm just raking across. I think I'm starting with like the D string. Again, I don't want to get too technical because it really doesn't matter, but I'm just doing a slight little rake, palm muted rake. Okay, that's something that I find myself doing, sometimes not even thinking about it, because it's just, I don't know, it just feels natural for whatever reason. And then I just go into a little, you know, alternate picking pattern. And you know, I'd have to really like sit down. It's like, okay, what did I just play just now? I'm sorry, guys. I'm really bad at that. I'll whip something out that I'm like, okay, I hope I can do that again. And sometimes I'll have to go back and study my own solo. It's like, you know, I guess that's the kind of the curse of playing by ear and playing by feeling and just emotion. This is what's coming out right now. I hope I can pull it off again, or at least close. Hey, if you get close, I'm fine with that. All I'm doing here, the notes I'm kind of surrounded by here on that E string are, what is that, 15, 17, and 19, and I go over to that 14th fret as well. And again, I'm not really going to run through all those notes there, but you know, you've got those notes I just called out. I'm on the B string as well, you know, 17, 15, I think 13 and 12. And then I go over to the G string, 14, 12, and that 11th fret there. Something like that. So if you guys want to go back and watch that, maybe you can tell me what I played, because I don't remember. Now this technique is also involving palm muting, and it's real similar to what we went over when we're talking about what I call like the Def Leppard style, where the rhythm kind of meets lead, but this is more of a guitar solo technique. It's a little less rhythmic, even though it's melodic. It's definitely for the guitar solo. We're doing some palm muting, right, again, but we're also doing some fast alternate picking while we're palm muting, and this just gives you a really awesome and 80s vibe. There are countless guitar solos and guitarists that use this technique, and maybe you can think of some and put them in the comments there. I always appreciate that. I love reading you guys' comments, by the way. But anyway, we're doing alternate picking while we're palm muting to get this effect right here. Okay, and I'll share what I just played, or I'll share the actual lick itself, but if you want to just practice that, right, let's just go on the 12th fret of the G string and just kind of palm mute and pick back and forth, alternate pick it. One little trick I want to share with you is when I'm palm muting, and this is kind of palm muting in general, is I don't have my palm just like hammered down real tightly there, right? I've kind of just got it subtly placed there, because if you try to go too tight, well, you're actually going to bend those strings. You're not going to be playing in tune. But if you just have kind of like a subtle touch there, then you get more of that airy effect between those notes, but they're still tight, if that makes sense. Okay, all I'm doing here, let's go through that one more time. Okay, we're on 12, and again, we're just using the same picking technique, same right hand technique, so it's almost like you're doing. Okay, again, 12, where are we at? 9, then 11, 7, 9, 4, 5, and I do like a little hammer on pull off there. So one more time. Another classic 80s move when it comes to guitar solos is using those natural harmonics. Now we're gonna do a little dive with a whammy bar at the end here, but even if you don't have a Floyd or a whammy bar on your guitar, you can still do those harmonics because they just sound really awesome in a guitar solo. It just sounds really cool. So let me see if I remember exactly what I did here. All right, so we're hovering over, okay? So if you're not familiar with harmonics, natural harmonics, I actually have another video that goes into depth on how to play those and some exercises that you can play those with. So check that out if you haven't seen that yet. I'm hovering over the 5th fret and also going to hover over the 7th fret to get these harmonics that I just played. And I'm just, you know, lightly hovering over the actual fret itself. Now, every guitar is a little different, right? Your harmonics are just slightly in different spots, I've noticed, from guitar to guitar. So the more you're used to playing a particular guitar, it'll probably be easier because you're familiar with it, and you grab a new guitar, you're like, wait a minute, where's my harmonics? And in some guitars, or I should say maybe some pickups, you know, it's just going to come out better than others. Anyway, so I'm only playing strings, the D, G, and B strings on hovering over both frets, the 5th and the 7th. Now, feel free to play whatever harmonics you want. You don't have to stick to what I played. You can play any harmonics you want. And again, this is where I want you to thrive. You can take the concept that I'm sharing with you here, but apply it in your own way. That's much better than trying to play what I just played. What's wanting to come out when you pick up your guitar, right? I'll give you a starting point, but I want you to carry it from there and come up with something on your own. Now that last natural harmonic, real cool high-pitched harmonic you can get on that 4th fret there, around that 4th fret on the G string. And I'm just using my whammy bar to subtly bring that down. So sometimes I might accidentally hit the B string as well. Give it a cooler effect, or maybe throw in the D string and G string. Again, play around with that. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So we're talking about 80s metal here, but I also say hard rock, and actually in the beginning I mentioned 3 just regular rock bands, right? When we went over that second lick there. Here's the thing, and I want to know your thoughts on this, guys, because back in the 80s, whether you came from my generation or maybe you're younger and you just like 80s music, chances are you like 80s music since you're still watching the video, but I want to know your thoughts on this. You know, back in that era, yeah, you had rock, you had hard rock, you had heavy metal, you had other styles of metal, some heavier than others. But it seemed like music just kind of like all merged together as one. Yeah, you had some, I guess, music snobs, so to speak, if you want to call them that. Well, I just like metal and I don't like that lighter stuff or whatever. But I don't think you had as much of that back then as you do now. Now we've got all of these like ultra subgenres of metal and rock and all this, that, and the other. And it just seems like there's more of a segregation between not only genres but subgenres as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe that's just me being the old dude that I am, but I'm just thinking, man, back in the 80s and the 70s as well, you know, you had all these genres, but a lot of people listened to everything. I mean, man, I started out listening to things like Phil Collins, right? Genesis, The Police, Madonna. Heck, even the Tiffany song that made the hit, you know, she was like singing in the malls and stuff. What was it? I Think We're Alone Now. I started out my music career, as we'll call it, by recording those songs off the radio. I remember the DJ would start talking. I'm like, DJ, shut up, dude, you're ruining the song intro. But that's how I got started into music, you know, and Prince and all sorts of artists like that. And then I merged into heavier music, but I still listened to the other stuff too. And a lot of people that I knew and hung out with, even the metalheads, some of them would secretly say, yeah, I like Madonna, but don't tell anyone. But again, my point is you just had this, I guess, togetherness of the era, right? It was kind of just all in one bucket. You know, movies included. It was just a really awesome time. But going back to the style that we went over of guitar solos, you know, you heard this style in pretty much all genres of music back in the 80s, and again, some 70s as well. Some of the licks that I played, you would hear them in heavy metal, you would hear them in, I guess, classic metal, you would also hear some of them in rock, and some of them in even what you would call, I guess, pop rock, right? You would have some of those same style licks. Okay, so maybe the guitars didn't shred quite as much in some of the pop songs as they did in the hard rock and heavy metal songs, but you still had some killer guitar solos. I mean, I think back going to listening to some Chicago songs. They have some good guitar solos. That song I mentioned by the Cutting Crew, I guess we'll call that kind of pop rock or maybe rock. Man, that song is just full of like meat and potatoes of guitar work. It's just got some awesome guitar solos and like where lead meets rhythm style playing in that song as well. Just really cool. So hey, I'd love to know your thoughts on the 80s guitar solos, guys. And also let me know if this lesson helped you. That's the most important thing. I know I didn't offer tabs or anything like that. I wasn't really trying to show you how to play any specific lick or anything. Again, I just kind of whipped this solo out. I was just wanting to put some content out there for social media. So I laid down a quick rhythm track. We're in the key of E minor. I think it's a C, E, D, E, something like that. And I'm like, let me see what I can come up with here. And hey, this turned into a YouTube lesson for you guys because there were so many little elements of 80s guitar playing that I wanted to put in there. But anyway, I hope this helped you guys. I really hope you got something out of this lesson. And remember to check the YouTube description. If you don't have my free practice guide, Metal Riffs and Licks, I know a lot of you have that, grab a copy of that. I think that will really help you in your guitar playing. If you have that already and you don't have one of my guitar courses, I've got a beginner's metal guitar course if you're kind of just getting started out and want to learn the fundamentals of heavy metal music. Now I've got Metal Guitar Apprentice, and of course I've got my flagship course called Metal Riff Master if you're at that intermediate stage and just wanting to take things to that next level. So the links for all of that is in the description of this YouTube video. And guys, I truly appreciate the support. Thank you to everyone who supports my courses, my music, this channel, everything. On that note, no pun intended, please give this video a like and hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. And guys, I will see you on the next video. Until then, keep it metal.